I think it will. I mean, they have had essentially 2 years to get schools on board, right? And digitizing schools is a thing that's been going on for decades. So my bet is there will be some volume of schools that don't successfully deliver the test. Let me go full out here. I'm gonna say one
Talk
to
that,
two
talk that
percent.
talk.
College Board is going to. There's going to be some screw up. It's going to make the news. College Board will follow up with an announcement that says we successfully delivered X number of tests, and 1 to 2% of test takers had a problem. And we will have no way to verify their numbers, by the way. Right? But they're gonna
Hmm.
come out and be like, oh no, it was good for almost everybody.
You are now tuned in to the On Track with All My People podcast with your hosts, Amber Peters, A.K.A. Ms. P.
And Daytwan David, A.K.A. Dr. Change. Ain't nothing strange about it. A.K.A. Mr. David, A.K.A. Ayo Miss.
Oh my God, Daytwan, can we just start the show already?
Yeah. We're back. And I'm gonna let y'all know some of the behind the scenes stuff with Amber, right? Like Amber, I think sometimes set me up for failure, right? We're shooting this episode today on a Friday. Let me kind of let y'all know, like we have a really dope episode coming today, and Amber is here. She's cool, she's comfortable, and she's been looking at me for mad long, and she was like, "Yo, are you okay?" And we had a chance to kind of talk to our guest, and he's super comfortable or whatever, and I'm mad hot in a turtleneck, right? Like I was like, yo, let me try to give them a different look. I can't just be doing like hoodies and hats all the times, right?
I
Like
love how you be always trying to like your fashion choices always seem to be my problem. The too tight t-shirt, not a turtleneck. I
yeah,
need
but
you to get your life right.
I
I
can
need
get
you
my
to
life
take
right. Like
accountability for your actions.
just help me out though, right? Like let's just help me out. Here's what I'll say. Um, yes, I'm gonna take accountability. It's I'm not gonna blame it on you. Like my energy right now is I'm actually gonna be a little relieved, right? Like you know that with Zaire, my daughter, that we've been going through the independent school process for various reasons. Her and her mother, we have often at different points in times have had like some kind of guilt. You're like, man, we cannot find the educational institution that matches her like ability, right? Like or challenges her in the way that she needs to. And we were blessed with an opportunity, and being blessed with that particular opportunity, like we had to do a lot, like so we had to fill out applications, we had to write essays, we had to go on interviews, we also had to do testing, like a
Sound like
lot of
college.
testing. It sounds like college. Essentially that's what it was, right? Like there was definitely college. So let me tell you about the testing part, which is crazy, right? um Fortunately, as a college access professional, I've been able to really support students in trying to navigate things like the SATs and the ACTs and preparing for those exams somewhat, but also understand the significance of what they need to do and what they specifically need to focus on, right? Like there is a content piece that is connected to that, but it's also some other parts like skill development, like being able to understand how to take the test or how to manage your time while taking the test, how to
Mm-hmm.
manage your attention, right? Like there's a lot of that, and I'm doing that with an 11-year-old, right? Like the test was super crazy. First of all, like answering 40 questions in 20 minutes for verbal reasoning, 37 questions in 35 minutes for quantitative reasoning. That's doing math, doing essays. Like it's a lot, right? Like it's a lot. And prior to
That's
my
something
daughter,
an 11-year-old should be managing. I'm just saying.
it's real, and unfortunately, it was part of the process, but it's also part of like the larger process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for me, there are some challenges that I have within standardized testing, especially as entrance exams, because as a practitioner, like I've seen the amount of stress that it brings onto my students.
Oh
I've
yeah.
also seen how many students have, in some sense, like associated their sense of self worth and value to how they performed on that 1 3 exam, right? Like, so those things have been super, super challenging to kind of deal with. And so, on the flip side, like being able to kind of understand, like there needs to be some kind of standards for schools to say, hey, this student is a fit to our school and that they can essentially meet our criteria, right? Like,
The
and they can
question is,
perform
does
well.
it necessarily need to be this test, right? Does it
That's,
need to be a SAT or ACT? Do we need to reimagine something different? Does it need to be this?
that's the question, and I think we have somebody here that's going to help us to answer that question.
Oh yeah.
Amber, who are we?
We are the On Track with All My People podcast, and we just want to say welcome to the show. We're back,
Welcome to the show.
and
We
we're
are
black,
back, and I'm
and we
hot in the turtleneck.
are
I wore a
burning.
turtleneck for y'all. But who are you?
My name is Amber Peters, A.K.A. Ms. P, one half of the On Track with All My People podcast, and I'm here
And I'm
with
Daytwan David, aka Dr. Change. Nothing strange about it. The second part of this. One of the other episodes, I messed it up. I called myself the host, and you was feeling
Yes,
some
you
kind of way,
did. You
right? But I
forgot
got it
all
right
about
today.
me.
I got it right today. But today's not me. I'm telling you, I am not going to be in my ego-centered, ego trip self today. We're going to focus on the guest. Who we bringing onto the show?
All right, guys. So we have the incomparable Akil Bello. You guys know him. You guys love him. You've seen him present at a number of conferences and things like that. So we're bringing him on. So Akil Bello is a supplemental education and test preparation expert with almost 3 decades of experience. Beginning as a proctor in 1990, Akil has worked at every level of test preparation from proctor to CEO. Y'all remember bell curves, right? He has helped launch 2 companies, develop dozens of preparation programs for more than 10 different high stakes tests, trained hundreds of instructors, and has helped thousands of students achieve success. Currently, Akil serves as the Senior Director of Advocacy and Advancement at FairTest, where he works to build resources and tools to ensure that large scale assessment tests are used responsibly and transparently to benefit students. Welcome, Akil.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great to be here.
I hope we did that
Have you.
justice. Yeah,
Oh,
I
it
hope we did
works.
that.
I'm not particular about those things. Like y'all could have just said Google me and that could have been the end of it. I am not particular.
That's hilarious. I watched a couple of your interviews, and there was one interview that I was just like, there's the running joke that Akil may be of Caribbean descent because you had like you had jobs, like you had most, like you listed those off, and I
Right.
was like, wow, like we are of the same tribe of working. So we're glad to have you here, and we're going to start off with an energizer that Amber created. It is called Rapid Fire. So it'll be semi-rapid fire because there may be points in times that you're going to kind of elaborate on what is being asked of you. But we want the original response. Okay, we see you. We see what are you trying to show us?
The University of the Virgin Islands. You
Oh,
said I
that's
might be of Caribbean descent.
hilarious.
I am absolutely of Caribbean descent.
Yo,
And I'm
that's
rocking the UVI hoodie.
shout out to UVI. I have a
Wait,
large.
what's the country we shouting out?
The United States. It's the US Virgin
No,
Islands.
no, no.
I
Your
was in St. Thomas
Caribbean
is the
country.
island though.
Oh yeah.
My mother's Haitian, my grandmother's Trinidadian, so I got Caribbean all up in me
Oh,
Got it.
everywhere.
love it.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
Love it.
that
Yes.
potluck is
This
fire.
is our people. Our
So,
fellow coconut.
yeah,
this is
yeah.
our people. Okay, so rapid fire. Some of the questions you may elaborate, but the first part of the question, just immediate response. So I'm
Okay.
hearing something about you. You're a basketball fan.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Favorite basketball team?
Knicks.
Uh
John
Ooh.
Starks.
oh man, we were starting off great.
Oh God.
I'm a Bulls fan.
See,
And
see,
I'm a
see.
Bulls
All
fan.
right, this is over. Are we done here? Are we done here?
Understood. I get it.
Bulls fan.
Y'all have a shot of doing something really important this year as long as your point guard comes back healthy.
We need everybody back, man. We in trouble if we don't get health back. We got 4 starters out or 3
Four
starters
starters
out.
out.
It's
That's
painful.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, so taking y'all away from that basketball question. I don't know nothing about basketball. Favorite way to get in the zone before speaking at a conference?
Oh, that's a good question.
Fire question.
Talking to people.
Hmm.
I tend to go to conferences and hang out with the people. I don't sit in the back rooms. I just talk to people.
I like
I've
it.
seen it.
I
I've
like it.
seen
I
it.
think that's a good hack too. If you're nervous, that way you have friends in the room before you even start speaking.
For sure. The three of us have this in common, where we have received W-2s, 1099s, all of that, right? Working for yourself or working for others?
Oh, myself, unless others are going to pay me a crap ton.
Yeah.
Amen.
I'll work for College Board for the right amount.
That's real.
That's
That's,
real.
that's super real.
It's so
I can,
real.
super real. I can say for me, because I think, Amber, at some point in time, we'll kind of want to explore the other side of entrepreneurship. I think it's a topic that is relevant to college and career like access. Like people really talk about like getting that LLC and like everything that it like warrants and like allows you and affords you to do. But the challenge is the other side for me, like the administrative paperwork and all of that. It's like,
And getting
man,
paid
and getting paid on time.
on time.
Yeah.
I do not recommend entrepreneurship for the faint of heart. And I think that nobody should be in entrepreneurship until they play with losing money on somebody else's dime.
That's
I like
real.
it. Thank you.
Ideally, you have the job you want working for somebody else. That way the penalties, the hurt of losing the money ain't on you.
Right.
And while you're trying to start a family, while you're trying to do all these things, right? You don't have to like figuring it out while you need that income is hard.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll speak to that really quickly.
This one like church.
I've lived that life. But one thing that I think discovered over time, I've been kind of like listening to podcasts, following people that have been successful. There's a lot of business people that are like really, really rich that don't use their money to fund their businesses. And I was like, wait, that is wild. But it makes sense. I think it aligns with some of the things that you're saying also.
Man, I wish I had learned about, investments and venture funding and all that stuff before I started. It'd have been a whole different ball game. But that's a whole nother conversation.
For both of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
So another one, testing. Keep it or chuck it.
As it currently stands in America, chuck it. Needs a hard reset. It is misused, abused, and provides very little real information in the way we currently use it.
I agree.
That statement is real. And I want to investigate that. That's one of the things we do, investigating, celebrating your work, and also elevating the consciousness of the field. Amber, I got it right today. And I made it up, but I got it right today. I stuck the landing. Okay, last one. In your opinion, which test serves students better for admissions purposes? SAT or ACT? None.
Ooh.
I was quick. I'm finished.
That was so
You
quick.
don't even have to finish.
You talk about rapid fire.
They don't serve students.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you ask that question differently,
okay,
there is a question of which can students find more easily find a way to make useful.
Okay.
Or sure, that becomes a question. And that's actually, I can't answer it generally. It's an individual question. Right? The one you do better on, the one you'll get a high score on more easily, is the one that you can turn to your advantage better. It's still not serving students.
That's real. I love that. I love that spin. And yet you're in thinking about not serving students, right? Like I am thinking about like part of this episode from the lens of a parent, and the amount of stress that my daughter, who has been a high performer all her life, prior to getting to this test, and when she got to the first sort of like practice, like her results in that test was like crazy, right? Like, and it's just like, man, like now we have to tie and connect this to what does this mean for her and how she's thinking about herself. What does it mean for an admissions opportunity? If schools are going to deny her, because like a whole bunch of things kind of went through our heads and her heads, and I know better, right? But it affects there's like equity issues, there's like impacts on livelihood, there's also like things that need to be addressed. And I want to be able to kind of investigate some of those things on this episode today. So Amber's kind of leading us into just sort of like your journey.
Digging in your business. Just a little bit.
Dig away. If there's one thing that can be said truly about me is that I am largely unfiltered.
We love that here.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
We
not
love
fully
that here.
unfiltered, but I'm largely unfiltered.
Good. So, all right. So, the first thing we want to know is like we want to like understand your professional pathway, right? Like, what was your educational journey like first and foremost, like before even deciding to do this work? Like, what was that like for you just to even get here?
I like how you said decide.
Uh,
You're making things sound intentional.
that's hilarious.
All right, let's see if we can do this real quick. Graduated high school in '89. Did my first year at the University of the Virgin Islands. That semester, that fall, there was Hurricane Hugo. That was fun.
Ooh.
Left the University of the Virgin Islands because I was intent on getting to New York because I wanted off at St. Thomas. So I transferred for no real good reason to St. John's in Queens, spent a year and a half there, then decided maybe I should actually pick a major I want to do. Decided I wanted to do architecture, transferred to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn because I thought it was going to be cheaper than St. John's because I looked at the semester price, not the year price. And so I was comparing the wrong numbers because, you know, teenagers.
Right.
Went to Pratt Institute and got a bachelor's of architecture. While in my second year of college, because I was looking for a part-time job, because you know college is expensive, they told me work study, but they had no work studies on campus at St. John's at the time. So how you gonna put that in my tuition, in my financial aid package, and you ain't got jobs for me?
That's crazy.
So
That's a
I got a
setup.
job at Princeton Review proctoring part-time, not because I'm particularly smart, but because my aunt worked there, and she said, yo, go give them my name, you'll get a job. And I got a job as a proctor. Eventually, they recruited me to become a teacher. And so I started teaching and site directing and all those other things at Princeton Review while in college. That led me into test prep while concurrently trying to do architecture in school. So fast forward to 90, whatever, 95, I finished school with no experience in architecture, lots of experience in test prep. Also finding out that your average architect starts out at about $28,000 a year. The previous year part-time, I had made 30 as a tutor. I'm like, which one of these things should I pursue? And I went down the test prep road. Did Princeton Review for a bunch of times. Eventually said, I'm gonna do my own thing. Started Bell Curves. Eventually left Bell Curves, went back to Princeton Review, and eventually left Princeton Review and started doing other things. I am now at Fair Test. That's the short version of it.
Interesting, because this answered all my questions.
All of them. All of them.
I have another question for you, right? So, because you started off, you said architecture, right? And then, right, as many of us do, we kind of get like, we are introduced to something that we didn't even think about, and then we end up in it. So, like, if you had to do it all again, would you, in fact, be an architect, or is there something else that calls to you besides architecture or what you're doing now?
I think I wanted to be an architect in 1850. And given that I wasn't born until 1970, that's kind of difficult.
Right. I would say so.
Maybe it was 1900 architects that I wanted. I wanted to sit with a family around a table, learn what they want out of their house, go back to my office, design the house, come back to the site, watch it built from the ground up, watch the family walk in happy with the end product. That's not how architecture works in my lifetime.
I mean, well, HGTV.
Yeah, but not even that, because HGTV is all redesign of built projects.
Got it. Okay.
I don't want to do interior design, right?
Right.
So the field has become really splintered. There's architects who essentially these days draw pretty pictures of the overall structure and design of the building. There's the structural engineer who makes it stand. There's the interior designer who does so there's a lot of stratification of the industry, right? That's not really what I wanted. And I didn't want to work on skyscrapers. I wanted to do individual houses for individuals, right? Like sit down with a family, work out what they want. That's not really how things are built. Today, houses are built by corporations who take one floor plan and reproduce it 17 times, making the outside look a little different.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
Standardizing. Yep.
So that's hard, right? I still love design, and I still think a lot of the things I learned about design are represented in my PowerPoints and slideshows and stuff like that. So I still think I use design principles. Knowing what I know now, if I had to go back, I might do something design related. Maybe not architecture because the field isn't what I want it to be.
Got it.
That's a great point. And I also really do appreciate you being able to kind of take transferable skills and knowledge into what you're
Yes.
doing now, right? And being able to apply it. That is a skill that we want all of our students to like understand, and also for working professionals as well.
Mhm.
So you mentioned a very interesting year, 1980s. I didn't prep this question, but I think it's important. Were you familiar with the movie School Days? Okay, okay, okay.
Like, what?
Really? You gonna do me like that?
Okay. I'm just questioning because like I don't want to make any assumptions. And then we have because I have a very important
You
question.
just asked me whether I want to keep my black card. Is that what you said?
Oh,
Now, since we're here, since we are now here, that is yes. Now you might be challenged on how you're keeping that black card depending on how you answer this question. This is a this
Okay,
or that.
uh-oh.
Which particular show do you feel had more? Which medium had more of an impact on Black people wanting to pursue higher education? School Days or A Different World? You got a choice now, brother. You got a choice, brother. You got a choice. Aha.
I feel like
Aha.
a different world.
Okay,
I feel
explain.
TV is always going to beat. I feel like TV is going to beat movies, just because it has a wider reach.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a different world.
Okay, so
But
that's
School
great.
Days also brought us EU and Doing the Butt,
Yeah, there you
yes.
go.
Yes.
and that was a cultural phenomenon that not only got go-go music out there, but also HBCUs were attached to that.
Yeah.
Right? I
100%.
still would say a different world because I feel like Denise Huxtable just made a lot of people want to go to HBCUs.
And 100%. I'm following you, brother. 100%. Amber, I told you this story. I don't want to diverge too much, but on my senior year, A. Philip Randolph in Harlem, shout out to A. Philip Randolph, they
and
had
yet you're a Bulls fan.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And I had to deal with a lot of New York Knicks fans while we were there, but it's all right. It helped to fortify my character. That's what I can say. But in thinking about that, we had some young ladies that traveled from Virginia State, and I was like, "Oh, I'm out." I wanted to go to Boston. I don't know how that happened after that experience, right?
That's
But
the polar opposite of an HBCU.
polar
Seriously.
opposite. But I was like, "Yo, I'm out." But here's the tie-in. I'm curious about this. You're gonna have a perspective. You are, of course, familiar with Dwayne Wayne. One thing that he used to boast is scoring 800 on his SAT in the math section, right? Like that was his thing, like his
Okay.
armor, his shield, his like trophy. I'm curious. Um, if a student comes in with a perfect score in the SATs or any standardized test, what should we actually be celebrating them for? Like what is the key focus that we're like to be transparent with them?
I mean, doing a hard thing is always worth celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a unique thing is always worth celebrating. I look at it this way. The kid who wins the spelling bee, celebrate them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a damn if I win a spelling bee. I will not win a spelling bee. If y'all follow me on Twitter, y'all know I will typo like a mofo. Like, I don't care. Right? I've spelled my own name wrong from time to time. Right? Like I'm okay with that. Right? Like, so winning a spelling bee is skillful. It is difficult. It is worth celebrating. I don't think anybody should be admitted to college because they want a spelling bee.
Yeah.
I don't think it demonstrates college readiness. It demonstrates a particular skill in a thing. Rubik's Cube, esports.
Yeah.
You finish, I don't know, Halo in a day. That's skillful. I can't do that.
Neither
I don't
can
know
I.
if it's meaningful.
So being able to have the skill and it being meaningful, separating two
Right.
different things.
Right. I don't think esports are sports. it's still something that takes a whole lot of skills, and I ain't mad at them for having scholarships or whatever. I don't like the word sport. I feel like if there's a sport, you should sweat and run around. If
You
we
know
gonna
what?
call it a sport, golf ain't a sport neither. Right?
Ooh,
So you use that definition.
spicy.
Like you gotta run around. There should probably be a defender. Like so. But
Yo, golf with a defender that is like blocking. That is amazing.
That would be crazy, right? Like, oh, can you imagine? We just invented a new sport.
Yo,
That's a new sport right there.
100%. And it's gonna be interesting because I'm gonna make sure, because I want to tease my daughter. Some things you said connect directly to her. She loves esports. She's 11. She loves esports, and she's gonna be doing the city round of the spelling bee next year. Next week. Next week. So I'm gonna let her know, like, yo, I talked to a professional who said, like, yo, we're gonna celebrate you because it's a skill. We don't know how meaningful it is, so don't try to stick me up for these extra prizes and stuff. Super.
She should absolutely stick you up for all the prizes.
Seriously.
Like, I want her to challenge you and be like, listen, if I can spell words you can't spell, you got to give me $1 every time. Like, I'm good.
That's real.
That's real. That's okay.
Okay.
Right? Like,
don't be trying to mess up Miss Zaire. Zaire, if you listening, get him for all his ducats, all of it.
It's the problem I have with a lot of this stuff and with testing is this. Like, that's why to me the spelling bee is a nice analogy, right? You can't say those kids who do spelling bee aren't smart. Mm-hmm. They do have smartness. There's a lot of skills and knowledge that have to go into spelling bees, but it's narrow.
Mm-hmm.
Testing is a narrow set of skills. We are overusing it. And if you don't have that skill, what does it mean? Mm-hmm. Same thing with the spelling bee. If you can't win a spelling bee, what does that mean? If you're not top 10% of the spellers in your region, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Now, if you can't spell the, we could have a different conversation.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah, I got some concerns there. Right? But a lot of places pretend that not being top 10 of spellers and can't spell the are the same thing.
Right. Right.
I am fully on board with the test that tells me this person will fail out at the next level. I am fully on board with that test. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
True. Even with research and key indicators.
The research is all fluff. Let me say that better. SAT research, for instance, 1,000 on the SAT, which is below average, I believe predicts it basically predicts like a 2.9 GPA. So you mean graduate, never on academic probation.
Right.
Higher GPA than a lot of us finished college with.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me a bad SAT scores means we're going to predict this student will do just fine.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like a 1600 predicts or correlates to whatever language they want to use, right? Like a 3.6. Right? And in some places, it's even narrower than that. All the noise Dartmouth was just making about their announcement to go back, it helps them predict blah, blah, blah. A 1200 SAT predict like a 3.2 GPA. And a 1600 predicted like a 3.8. Like, really? That's what we're arguing about?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of those are alum.
Right.
All of those will graduate.
Right.
So you're quibbling and ranking for nothing.
And I want to bring that up. You were on a podcast, Eloy Oakley. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mm-hmm. You said something very profound. If you listen to
profound things, I am the fount of profundity.
Talk your talk. And I know you said you probably couldn't spell that. You said if you were on Twitter, but you can say it.
I may not be able to spell it, but I can say it.
But you can say it for sure. On that show, you mentioned if you listen to the marketing of these tests, it's no longer about educational value. It's about ranking and sorting. You said that, right? My question, like to really, really set this off, although you kind of set this off already, Can standardized testing really have educational value? And if so, what would it look like?
They'd have to, it could, right? If the companies behind testing were motivated to do more than sell a product, they could absolutely rewrite it to be useful. But the problem is, to make it useful for most of us, it becomes less useful for the highly rejective colleges. Standardized testing will never meaningfully tell you the difference between high achieving students. There's no meaningful difference between somebody who scores a 1500 on the SAT and a 1600 on the SAT. There's no meaningful difference. The difference may actually be, oops, I made a mistake twice. And if that's what you're sorting for, then have at it. But it's dumb. Right. And then to say that that means ability, college readiness, any of those words they want to use is BS.
Oh, right? We know that part.
Right. So to make them useful, they have to start doing things like reducing the score scale, producing different information from the test other than numbers, right? Reducing the score scale, like if your daughter took the IC, it scored on a stay 9. That's actually more useful.
Okay.
It's only a 9-point range. You know what? If you're in the 1, there's a lot of stuff we thought you should know that you don't know. Cool. If that's very different, a 1 versus a 5, right? Sure. But when you start going, a 1300 versus a 1320, the difference there could simply be you got a different test form, one of which was easier than the other, and you both got the exact same number of percent of questions correct. But one test correlated to a different score than the other. Correct. You can get the same number of questions correct in math alone. Math on the SAT scored 200 to 800, right? The old test had 58 math questions. If you got 53 right on one test versus another, that score might range 90 points.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So in other words, don't mean much. And schools are quibbling about 20-point, 10-point differences, right? Whereas in truth, like there's all these things that the testing companies don't really want to push, right? They have things called like standard error of measurement, which basically means if you take the test again, your score might fluctuate by this much, meaning nothing about you, just about the way testing works.
For sure.
For the SAT, the standard error of measurement is 40 points. So basically 40 points up or down, your score may swing, and it don't mean nothing. That's not how they're using it, right? And the testing companies could come out and raise a stink anybody who uses it wrong. But they don't, because they like the use.
Right.
They like the use, period. So how do we start to make this useful? Stop using it to say BS, right? Stop creating these fake distinctions between small changes in scores. So Stay 9 addresses that a little bit better by removing some of those minor distinctions, right? But also, we have the technology to do things like, how about we report partial answers versus wrong answers? If you ask me 1 plus 1, and I put down 1, right? That is likely a mathematical a confusion. I did multiplication instead of addition. If I put down 47, I'm insane, right? Like, if I put down 47, I have no clue about how math works in any way, shape, or form. Why not report that? This student got 56% of questions correct, but of his wrong answers, 33% were partial mistakes. The question asked them for X plus 1. The student selected X. Because you know what? When they're designing the test, they build those in. They're called distractors formally. So that if you ain't paying attention, you could do all the work right and screw it up.
And still screw it up, yeah.
Well, so why not just tell the school, the university, this kid is a little careless, but knows all the stuff.
I think that would make more sense. Yeah, that's more meaningful than just like...
Right, let's just give a number.
Yeah.
So I have just a quick follow-up before Amber jumps in. I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. What what would you say to somebody that says like, hey, that will become super costly? Like the
That ain't
whole
my
point of
problem.
standardization is
Do it right.
efficiency. That's not your problem.
And
Do
it's
it
not
right.
costly. That's BS. That's just programming. That's
Mm-hmm.
easy programming on answer choices. They actually did it. They did it on the way in. That's how they designed those choices. If you create a math question
Mm-hmm.
that has 4 steps, steps number 2 and 3 automatically become answer choices.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, and also just think about that. On a timed test, which is going to rush most of the kids, a kid who stops a little early because they're in a rush has now been told they're not ready for the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's real.
I like that. I'm learning so much just about how testing actually works. Because I think we think as educators we even know, like even if we're proctors for the exam, like we think we know, but we really don't know that
Nope.
all these things are a part of it. Which takes me to right because SAT school day is coming, right? I see all my they flipping out. They losing it. They losing it right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned myself. I'm happy that I'm not there, right? Like I don't have to do any of that. I'm so excited about that.
Right.
Like
Right.
Yeah.
words cannot express, but I'm wondering with this new shift because I feel like ACT was like the first to kind of go digital, especially during the pandemic when 2020 happened. They were like, "All right, we're just going to shift it to online," and
They
SAT
did
was
not.
figured out. They didn't.
They didn't. ACT
Interesting.
is not online. They announced it and then
Yes, they
called
did.
backsies.
Oh.
That's it.
That's good to know because I was like, ACT
You ain't
been doing
wrong.
this. What is
They
SAT doing?
right.
And
They
they wasn't
announced some
even
digital
doing nothing.
things and then they called backsies.
Interesting. So going back to the schools though, schools are needing to figure out this digital thing. Now, for context, if you've ever been in some of these schools, either A, the Wi-Fi is not consistently working, or B, the device is not consistently working, or a combination of both. So like, do you think schools are ready for this shift in going from the paper test to completely digital? Do you think it's going to be a mess? I kind of have my thoughts, but like, what do you think about that?
I think it will. I mean, they have had essentially 2 years to get schools on board, right? And digitizing schools is a thing that's been going on for decades. So my bet is there will be some volume of schools that don't successfully deliver the test. Let me go full out here. I'm gonna say 1 to 2%. College Board is going to there's going to be some screw up. It's going to make the news. College Board will follow up with an announcement that says we successfully delivered X number of tests and 1 to 2% of test takers had a problem. And we will have no way to verify their numbers, by the way. Right? But they're going to come out and be like, oh, no, it was good for almost everybody.
No.
Right? So, and I'm not saying they're liars. I'm saying they have not been transparent enough for me to have any good faith in that they aren't spinning something. So I do think a good chunk of test takers will successfully take the test. But I also know that a non-trivial percentage of students will have trouble.
Yeah.
And will not be able to do it the day of. We'll have to reschedule it and do it another time. And it won't be preventative of them going to college. It'll simply be annoying.
Yeah.
You know, because they're launching it in the spring of junior year, right? Like no senior needs the test right now. Tests don't have to be taken in March, right? So they have March to screw it up, April to do it again right, May to do it again right. So there's plenty of time to recover from it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not crucially harmful or preventative of anybody going to college. it is immensely annoying, and it creates additional burden for schools and counselors, especially in under-resourced schools.
Yeah. So like speaking about that, like what barriers do you think a student would face in that? Right? Because we know like with the school itself, but like what do you think for students? What would that look like?
I mean, so for schools, it's really like, are you able to become an IT team to deliver a test? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can just start right there, right? I like IT, public schools, money, et cetera, there will be challenges, right? For a
sure.
student who tries to take it school day and isn't successful taking it, you've probably geared up for doing it. Maybe you've done some prep, so it becomes annoying, right? Now you got to figure out a different day to do it. Are you going to prep again? Is it close enough? Is it weeks down the road? Do you have to wait till a different time? Will the school not do it again and you have to do it on a Saturday? Now it becomes logistical questions. Do you not have a computer to do it on the Saturday? College Board claims they'll lend out computers to Saturday test takers. I don't buy it. Like, I have not heard of anyone successfully getting a computer from College Board to take a test. They also claim the same thing with the digital AP exams.
Mm.
I'm sure somebody got one, but nowhere to the scale of what they say is available. Like when they did the digital APs, I think they said they had 25,000 computers ready to send out. I've seen no reporting on how many went out and how many people got to use them. Right. So, but I think in the long run, it'll shake itself out. We're in an increasingly digital world. Most people will be able to take the test. For some, it will be more annoying than others. Some small portion, right? Because if it's your school, that portion ain't small.
Right.
But College Board likes to
That's
go,
real.
it's okay A. Philip Randolph didn't do it because the rest of the country did.
Right.
Which sounds lovely, unless you're at A. Philip Randolph.
Unless you're at that school, right?
Randolph. So it's interesting, Akil. I heard you making your pitch for that high salary from College Board. So what I can say is the one concern that I have is that the SAT in school, like taking it during the day and it being structured in that way, I think in some ways, based on just like student like habits, makes it easier for students to show up. I know some students still are not going to show up, but they're probably more likely to show up than maybe on a weekend or finding out that they have to go to travel to Jersey to take this exam or whatever the case may be. So I'm concerned about that part. Like the student that's going to be like, yo, I'm not doing this. Like I was ready for here. You didn't set it up. That's an issue for sure.
And there's some provisions for makeups in school during the school day, stuff like that, right? So again, it's like they have put provisions in place, right? But all of these things favor resources.
Yes.
Right? And
Absolutely.
so my, like, in all these conversations, I don't want to know who won. I want to know who lost. Right? Don't tell me about who won. Tell me the number of students who were unable to take the test and what was done for them. Right? College Board wants to distract us with, let's even say that their numbers are legit, right? 98% of the people took the test successfully. Right? Well, 98% of 1 million, right? That still means there's 200,000 people who didn't take the test.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And 200,000 probably mostly poor Black and brown kids.
Mm-hmm.
Rural kids. Right? The kids who are least likely to be able to, hey, I'm going to go do it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So and it's part of their pitch for doing a school day, right? That, hey, it makes it easier for kids. And that's not wrong. Right? But I think part of my criticism comes when they do it on a school day, they don't pay the proctors. So now they're making the school staff free labor for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they're IT. Now they're like, so now it's school IT. Now it's school proctors, right? On the weekend, they actually have to pay the teachers to proctor.
Mm-hmm.
During the week, they don't. So they're increasing the financial burden on schools to deliver their test.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah, and there's some challenges there. You transitioned us. You're leading this interview. You don't know how well you're leading this interview, but you're leading this interview. Amber gave me some context to lead me into this next question. This is sort of like a rapid fire. Right now, today, you were to go to a blacktop court and declare your son 32
Really?
or
Is
21.
this what we're doing?
Who's
You
winning?
know, I'm
Who's winning?
52 and play
Okay.
basketball like during the summer months. My son is 18 and plays
Mhm.
basketball basically year round and trains and lifts and all of that. All
Okay.
right, like so,
Okay.
like
So
I feel like
final
your
answer.
question is pointed and unfair.
This is, I put together a distractor answer in there. So we'll see. I like the way that you answered that.
See, this is because Daytwan is going based off his ego. Because if you would have asked the same thing between him and his daughter, it would have been a
it
different
don't matter.
story.
Age, I know exactly what I would have said, for sure. But in thinking about that,
2 years ago,
there was a
I could have
brilliant
answered that
man.
legitimately. Now, like if I answer wrong, he's gonna call me out, and I ain't ready for that.
He's like, I don't want that smoke.
I don't need that.
He's gonna do
I ain't
a
here for that.
reaction video to the podcast. He's gonna be like, "Yo, let's go see this right now."
He's gonna set
love
up a
it.
camera,
Love it.
live
I need
stream
a
it on
real time video.
Instagram. Like, nah, I don't want none of that. I will say this:
We have
the
2
last
parts.
time we played, I beat him.
Okay. That's I will not investigate that because I use those same tactics.
That sounds like a very
It is
Daytwan thing to
true.
say.
It is my same tactics. I understand what you did. That is brilliant. That is brilliant. So in thinking about this, a brilliant man said this: testing is using a free throw contest to find basketball players. You might recognize who that individual is. That individual was you. And so I thought that was such a profound thing. One, because I love sports analogies, right? When they land and they stick, I love it. I'm curious because in some ways, testing, finding the basketball players are, I would assume, and you could correct me, please, is like finding the students that they feel are going to be a best fit for the institutions, and that they feel are going to be successful. At least those are the things that they say, right? With the Supreme Court's like recent decision, like being introduced, how do you feel like testing is going to be used to now find those players?
Good question. So I think that. So first of all, Supreme Court decision. I think we separate from this, right? There's 2 different things with the Supreme Court decision. There's also like there is not a conversation about college in the United States. There's no such thing as a conversation about college. There's a conversation about highly rejective colleges. There's a conversation about the other colleges, right? Because processes, procedures, needs, institutional priorities vary from college to college and college type to college type. Over 70% of colleges admit, I want to say 60% of their applicants or more. Those places ain't never looked at race and never will. They are looking at do you have the bare criteria to tell me that you will be successful in 13th grade coming out of 12th grade?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Cool. Like that's kind of how I want all colleges to operate. If you are successful in 12th grade, when we go to 13th grade, and I don't mean 13th grade pejoratively, I mean 13th grade as, well, damn it, I finished 12th. What's next? Like, stop pretending that college is this big fancy leap onto a whole new planet of education, right? It's 13th grade. You finished 12th, you could probably handle 13th, right? Like, I don't believe that there's a super special 13th grade at most of these places, right? At some places there is. At Juilliard, their 13th grade involves a level of dance that I cannot aspire to, right? My younger son has a better chance at that than I do, right? But I got no shot, right? I can't even do a good WAP. So I got no shot at Juilliard, right? And like they should absolutely reject me. MIT want people walking in doing calculus 7 or something stupid like that, right? So like MIT should absolutely reject me, right? But I think that most places aren't conveying that clearly. Like, what is Harvard special at that would mean they should reject me? They ain't the super math nerds. They're not the dance nerds. They're not the music school. They're just in demand. So I think the rationale for what makes somebody prepared for an MIT, a Juilliard, a Harvard, a Brown is very different. And saying that test scores at all those places predict equally well is silly. Is equally meaningful? That's all silly. right? So I think that the conversation needs to be more clear about what value and use are you getting out of this. Like MIT pissed me off because they said they need the test for diversity or something dumb like that. Like if MIT had just come out and said, listen, we are math nerd heaven. If you can't do SAT math, LOL, don't come here.
For
I'd have been
sure.
totally down if that was their entire statement. MIT, you better show up with an 800 or LOL, nah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody takes calculus 1 or 2 or something day one. Like there's no slow on ramp to hard math.
Mm-hmm.
For
English
sure.
majors at Harvard, what you got to do? Right? Like, so I think that those are different. And to use this one test to talk about studying philosophy at Hunter, engineering at MIT, or music at Juilliard is dumb. So that's the problem that we often have in these conversations. They try to make it equivalent across all colleges, where it's not a real thing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, like the basketball analogy is really about, so a free throw contest to me is really about the narrowness of that contest. It is a relevant-ish skill to playing basketball, but it's super narrow. And it would make no sense for that to be the primary or even secondary driver of selecting your team. That means you get all Jeff Hornaceks and no Shaquille O'Neals.
Amber, I'll explain that to you offline. I will explain
I
that to
got
you
it.
offline.
I
Amber,
got it.
you dropped a
It
And I
didn't
bomb.
go
chose Jeff
completely
for
over
a
my head.
reason.
I got it.
I chose Hornacek for a reason because it hits on multiple levels.
It definitely does. So I probably should have set up that question better, but you really landed on it. One of the things that I wanted to kind of try to kind of hit on is like just the ruling, the landscape. We understand that testing is biased. Would you agree? In who it affects, especially also test prep and like who's has access to being able to. So, what would you say about that in connection to what you just said? That was what I was trying to get to. Like the ruling is going to reshift some things in the ways in which colleges are going to evaluate. I was trying to understand what does that look like and who does it impact.
So the ruling is going to impact a set of colleges that have the luxury to craft their class and have used race as one criteria.
Mm.
Right? So and I think the bigger problem with the ruling is it's created conversations like this that have allowed the racist to go, he got in because he's black.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
opposed to say he was eminently qualified. And institutional priorities might have shaped why they were selected. Right? But notice, they don't even do that, right? They're just like, oh, because he's black. Affirmative action got him in. As if he didn't have all the great grades, activities, and other things that demonstrated academic readiness long before we ever got to considering race, right? So race carries as much, if not less, weight than geography, gender, family connection to the institution, ability to pay in full. There are lots of unqualified rich kids who got in because the college looked at them and go, oh, they will fill a budget hole.
100%.
So I think the problem with the case is that it puts black folks on the defensive of defending being accepted to these places.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It makes race appear to be a greater weight in selection at these places than it has. Right? And it allows for irresponsible, illogical statements like, got in because he's black, or race-based admissions, like all of those sort of things, right? And then they often use test scores to justify those racist positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think test scores do generally, there are discrepancies based on race, based on income, based on gender, based on a whole lot of different demographic criteria, right? Demographic categories. Black folks tend to get hit hardest because we tend to be in an overlap of a lot of those things, right? Black women are particularly hit hard in that, right? Poor does less well than rich. Black people are more likely to be poor. Women do less well than men, right? So now we're talking Black women again, right? So we got poor, woman, Black does less well than white and Asian. So you're a Black woman, you're in all the terrible categories statistically, on average, right? That doesn't mean you can't train your daughter up to do well. No one is saying you can't do well. We are saying this is how the statistics, because America has America'd for 400 years, right? We have yet to be able to overcome the systemic BS that was put in our way for over 400 years.
Yep.
Right? It's only what, 100 odd years we've been allowed to read? So yes, we are playing catch up.
Yeah.
So yes, test scores generally reflect that when you don't have 3 generations of families helping the child read. You don't have the opportunity to go to schools that are doing everything they can to craft a profile that is attractive to these highly rejected universities, to curate an academic experience that aligns with the way testing is taught. Right? When we think about that, think about the basketball training that happens now, right? The kids who have trainers do better because they are being trained for the things that are happening right now. So you got to be fascinating. You got to be skill off the charts to do this on your own. Where that other person is paying for a trainer from the time he's 4.
Right.
Right? So it doesn't matter if he gets an additional trainer in high school. He trained from 4 to 12 with like NBA kids, right? Making it to the NBA. I'm not surprised. Your daddy was tall, you're tall.
Right.
You got to be around NBA players from the time you were born. So you knew what a pick and roll was before my kid knew what a basketball was.
100%.
Right? So of course they're better. So the same thing with testing, right? Like if you grew up around people who have been trained for this, just through osmosis, you're going to learn a lot of those skills. Right? So there's a lot of things to unpack in there that those who love testing or love racism tend to try to ignore.
That's and Amber's going to lead us to the last section. Amber highlighted in yellow. She's going to lead that. You really hit the nail on the head. And I want to expand that a little further, right? Like there's early exposure to these things, right? People that are already aware of this early on, generationally, they've been able to carry over that knowledge and expertise. But there's the other aspect of this as well. Those that understand the system and know how to circumvent the system, we're creating scandals and people that are doing things historically that have been crazy, right? There's that other side, people that have the resources to be like, hey, this is a situation we're going to pay to play and to figure this out. So I'm glad you stated that.
Amber, all of it, right? Like you got money, you can do all of it. You can redshirt your kid, have him start at 6, not 5, so that he's older and more mature. And by the time they get to 12th grade, right, they seem better prepared because they're older.
For sure.
Right? Whereas if I'm poor, no, my kids go to public school as soon as humanly possible so I can get back to work.
Yep.
So all those things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the very last thing is just the things that I think oftentimes Black people we will be criticized for, and students getting 504 plans and things like that. There are people families that are wealthy, right? That are taking advantage of that. And their child is getting the extra time that all children should have to be able to do these tests, right? And they're doing hey, this is how we're going to get this done, and playing the the long game and using all the tactics and strategies. But that's another conversation. Amber, wrap us up.
Yeah. So we have one last question because we know how you feel about the test. We know where you stand. But going back to your rapid fire, right? Where we asked you keep it or chuck it, right? If you had to think about the future of testing, right? What would you like to see, right? Do we need to create a whole new test? Should we just scrap it and create something better, or do we take what we have and run with it and figure out how to tweak it? What do you see for the future of testing?
I mean, it depends on what avenue you're talking about, right? I think that, to me, it's weird to talk about testing in a vacuum, right? So I think the question is, what is it being used for? Is it being used in any kind of useful way? If we're talking about in-school testing and assessments and providing information to teachers, students, and families, that's one thing. If we're talking about testing for really the only purpose is to rank and sort students in order to increase your selectivity, that's a different thing. And it's improved immediately if you just fess up that that's what you're doing. Like, we think about, you're talking about independent school, right? Like, an independent school with too many applications. Okay, so I have too many applications. I can't just use grades. Everybody's got good grades. So you know what? I'm gonna make y'all do a hula hoop contest called a test. And it is what it is, right? Like, let's just call it, like, y'all, we're doing Rubik's Cube challenges. It is pseudo intellectual, right? But it gives me another way to sort. They don't really want to admit that because it sounds too arbitrary, right? Right? But it's like, so they want to hype up the test as its predictive value, academic value, blah, blah, blah. To me, it's like, it's okay. It's another hoop to jump through. It's a free throw contest, right? It is related skill, but I'm not sure meaningful. But okay, fine. If you call it what it is, I'm probably okay with that, right? But my other question would be like, can't we just get rid of it? Like, is it really just we're being lazy? You mentioned earlier the test gives you an efficiency. It does, right? Is it useful? Like, I guess the ultimate question comes down to, is the cost worth the benefit? Right? When you look at the cost of testing, its impact on social mobility, its impact on low-income Black and brown students, right? So it's, whether good or not, it is disadvantaging women, poor people, rural students, Black and brown students, right? So that you get to select among the rich kids through some kind of arbitrary-ish measure, some loosely related measure of ability, right? Like, the value there doesn't seem to be worth the cost. The cost in time, the cost in money, the cost in who it discriminates against, all of those sort of things. I feel like we can do better without.
I like it. I agree. I love it. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, Akil. First of all, period. Thank you so much for like your insight. Like, I think also like this is a discussion to be had amongst all professionals, right? Because I think sometimes we just like, especially like when you are in a position, it's like, oh, this is just another thing I have to do, but not really challenging the norm and kind of like lending what you're seeing to the conversation, right? It's just like, oh, well, they got to take the test, so we just go on, right? But like not making a big enough stink about it so something actually changes. And also like giving us the inside scoop of like what these tests are designed to do, like what they're really like, the real the reality behind it, because I think many of us don't know it, right? We think there's value on it because they say it's value on it, but not really like challenging to really see like what it actually is testing for.
Right. I think the biggest message for parents especially is, and it's hard because as a parent, they don't give you a ton of information about the test. You can't see the question. Like, as a parent, I want to see the question, right? Because if I go through and I look at a test with my kid and like, oh, you don't know how to do this. Cool, great.
Exactly.
But if I look at the test with my kid and we go, oh, you gave them X, they asked for X plus 1, and you did that on all your wrong answers. That means something totally different. I'm not worried about what they've learned. I'm not worried about that. I'm mad because you're messy. But I think we as parents know that going in, right? I can go in my kid's room right now and I can tell you he's messy, right? And that they don't follow directions because I told them every damn night, put your clothes away. Like, I don't really need confirmation of that with some bubbles.
Right. Right. Let me say this. We've been planning and plotting this for a year and a half. We've been talking about it, and I'm glad this finally happened when it did.
Y'all took a long time. Like you ain't have my email.
Yeah. No, I think we were still trying to figure us out. And I think we got to a place where we're just like, it makes sense now, especially with all of the changes. It really makes sense. So we're super happy. I'm gonna make something a little easier for you because I think I did you dirty earlier.
You
just a free throw contest. Just free throws. Who's winning? Just free throws. You don't got to move. Other than up and down, flick your wrist. Just free throws. Who's
He's
winning?
had more training in his 12, 15 years of playing basketball than I have in my life. He is more skilled than me in every way. I beat him when I was bigger. That's the truth. The truth is he is more skilled. He's been more skilled than me since he was like 11. But I was still bigger. Now I'm no longer bigger, no longer faster, and still less skilled. You could pick the contest. He's winning.
That means something to this episode for sure. And he's allowed to have a little messy me now. That's because all of them. Thank you. Yeah, really
I appreciate y'all. This has been fun.
Absolutely. So, guys, please, if you are not can you please give them your Twitter? Just like
Akil
sometimes
Bello.
when your stuff be popping up on, I don't even be on X like that, but every time I see this man post, I'm like dying laughing because he's hilarious. So please follow him on the Twitter if you are not connected to him on what's the other thing, the professional thing, the LinkedIn. You should probably
LinkedIn,
get on there too.
On pretty much every platform, I'm just Akil Bello. You can find me somewhere.
Yes, please do. And make sure you follow us also at OatSwamp on Instagram as well. Yeah, and we'll see you on the next one. Until next time, everybody.
Take it easy.
See ya.